Welcome to the Faith Today podcast. I'm Bill Fledderus, and I'm here with Mark Peterkins. Mark is here from One Way Ministries in Ottawa. It's a city uniting ministry. Maybe, Mark, you can actually describe it better than I could to start us off.
Sure. Well, what a pleasure to be here with you today, Bill, and thanks for this invitation. Yeah, One Way Ministries, we've been active in Ottawa for coming up to 30 years.
Wow.
And our heart is all about leaders and unity, and seeing leaders lean into biblical unity and living that out in however God wants them to do that in our city. And we play a role in just trying to help leaders catch that vision and live it out.
I kind of have seen two sides to the kind of work that you do. One is kind of peer support or care for people that are working in Christian ministry, and then sort of outreach activities where you're inviting people to cooperate and collaborate to do that kind of thing. Am I seeing that right? And what's the connection between those two sides of the ministry?
You are. Yeah. So, we build trust by coming alongside leaders. To step back, our premise has always been that investing in leaders' lives is a good investment. It's a leveraged investment, that when leaders lead well, the organizations, the businesses, the churches that they lead benefit from that and tend to be healthier. And so that's always been our premise. So what we do is we come alongside leaders, and we do all kinds of things to either invest in their lives or help them, introduce them to one another sometimes so they can be friends with one another. When we find that when leaders are friends, their trust increases. They're willing to pray together. And so we have a whole track of getting people, leaders, churches, the Christian church in Ottawa praying for the city. And then often what happens is God gives them ideas of how they might reach out to our city. And so we have a platform called Love Ottawa that we offer to these teams where they can organize and operate from in the areas that they're passionate about. And we bring along a little bit of expertise to help them do that really well. And so, it's like an incubator for ministries in Ottawa. And I think we're supporting about 15 different teams right now in the Ottawa area. And some of those teams actually have spread, and they've got ministries in other cities across Canada now too.
That is so great. I feel like so many Christians I've talked to have this vision, like, I'd love to see this in my city, but it's not actually been realized yet. And so I think what's amazing to me, and I think the inspiring thing to our audience, is that there is traction here in Ottawa. It's happening here, and like you say, over 30 years, obviously, over a period of time. But that's just really inspiring. And maybe there's, as we talk today, maybe you can share there are various kinds of learnings and things that you have gathered over those years that others can put into practice as they try to build networks across their own individual city or municipality where they are.
Yeah. Sort of a 30-year overnight success. You know, those overnight success stories that took 30 years in the making.
Yeah.
But I probably should mention that, we take as our scriptural basis for what we do, those passages that come out of John 15, John 17, John 15, where Jesus, he says, "A new command I give you, love one another as I've loved you." And then John 17, and I love John 17 because he calls us to be one with the Father and the Son, and there's a sense of being one with each other.
Yeah.
And we have a name, One Way Ministries. But what I love about that is there's this evangelistic edge to this unity, because right after that, Jesus says, when the world sees that you're one with the Father, one with one another, they're going to know that the Father sent the Son. There's this revelation of who Jesus is. He's the sent one, and that the Father loves us like He loves the Son. And so is this really interesting mix of what happens when the world gets to look at and watch our love and our care for one another. And I believe we're seeing some of those promises here in Ottawa as leaders are demonstrating their love and care for one another.
Yeah, and that love is inviting or attractive, right? Like that's part of the evangelistic side that you're talking about, right? It's beautiful, and people are like, I want to be part of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Can I give you an example of that?
For sure.
We've hosted now, I think 14, 15 years, a prayer breakfast. We call it the Ottawa Civic Prayer Breakfast. And the premise behind it is always to be talking about who is our neighbor and how do we love our neighbor. But what we do is we invite our first responders and our elected civic officials to be in the room, and we thank them. It's an appreciation event for the work they do. It's hard work, especially for elected officials. They're just blasted, by people, and especially coming
more
through
negatives
COVID.
than positives. Yeah, here.
They very, very rarely get the positives, and so when they come in the room, we're never taking them to task on anything. It's always an appreciation, and we end up actually cheering for them at times. But at the same time, we also tell the story. We have somebody come share a story of what they're doing in the city and how they're bringing Jesus' love to the city, how they're being good neighbors in our city. And I'm always amazed we get a lot of people in the room who would not call themselves believers. But I'm always amazed at how many of them talk about how enjoyable the event was. And I'm beginning to believe that it's because they're seeing our love and care for one another. Because we'll have our Catholic brothers on stage, we'll have some of our Orthodox brothers on stage, and I think what we're doing is we're putting our care and love for one another on stage.
Right.
And it is attractive.
So one of the things that you do is Love Ottawa. You mentioned that.
Yeah.
And so probably some of the stories you're sharing come from that. Can you describe that a little bit in more detail? Like what is Love Ottawa? What do people see in the city from Love Ottawa? Is it just individual churches each doing their own outreach and then it's coordinated through a single event? Is that kind of the idea?
No, not really. One of the things we've found over the years is that churches like to work with One Way Ministries because it's this trusted third party. Often, especially a big church, if a big church is trying to do something and they're trying to do a citywide thing, there's often a little bit of like, are they really doing this for the city or are they doing this for themselves?
Okay.
And so we've had pastors come to us and say, we could do this, but it's better if we could do it if you guys could be the ones to sort of be the banner, for that. It's neutral,
right.
know? And so that flows into some of these teams I was talking about with Love Ottawa. But the thing that we look for is, we're looking for people who we trust. So they're people that we've got to know over the years who come to us with some sort of passion, some sort of interest, something that God's put on their heart to do in the city, and to and they know that it can't be done by one church. It's going to take the church of the city to do it, and it's going to take a group of people from different backgrounds to work together in order to accomplish that. And so we look for teams that are going to help local churches be better at being local churches.
Okay.
Right? And so they're not necessarily competing. We love church planters and we support church planters as well. But these Love Ottawa teams are really there to help churches do a great job at it. I'll give you an example. So one of our teams is a team called Friends for Dinner. And they were one of the first teams we began to work with many years ago now. And what they do is they work really hard to connect with international students.
Okay.
And during the three Christian holidays during the year, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and Easter, they recruit international students to sign up to have a meal with a Christian family. And so they've got a website all set up. And so either students can go there and sign up, or a family can go there and sign up and say, hey, I'm ready to host. And they work really hard at this. They work hard, they work at this all year round. And for a church, if a church was to step back and say, how do we reach some of the international students in our city? This team is tailor-made for them. It couldn't be any easier. And so that's an example of.
So that's under the banner of Love Ottawa.
Love Ottawa,
and it's an ongoing program that a church might realize, oh, this is a kind of ministry that we're called to, and then they can end up becoming a part of that and contribute people to be on that team, right?
Exactly.
Let me ask you something. What if your home and auto insurance could do more than just protect what you own? What if it could also give back? At Deeks Insurance, that's exactly what happens. They specialize in helping members of evangelical churches, Christian University alumni, and not-for-profit organizations across Canada access exclusive group insurance rates, meaning lower premiums, better coverage, and higher limits on your home and auto insurance. Plus, with flexible payment plans and no service fees, you get the value you deserve, backed by some of the largest insurance in the country. But here's the part that really matters. A portion of every premium goes directly back to ministry partners supporting the spread of the gospel across Canada. So every time you pay your insurance, you're not just protecting your home or your car, you're helping make an impact. Switch to Deeks Insurance today and turn something ordinary into something meaningful. Real savings, stronger coverage, kingdom impact. Reach them at deeksinsurance.ca.
Okay, so then you've also got something else. This is probably where I was getting mixed up. You've also got something else called the Big Give, which is on a specific day in June, I think, right? So tell us about that then.
Yeah, so that's another team. That is a team that uses Love Ottawa as a platform. And this came out of, one of our churches started doing this thing called the Big Give. And we actually approached them and said, we think this is for the city, not just for your church. Would you guys be willing to try and work together to help other churches to do the same thing on that? It's the first Saturday in June.
Okay.
And so here's this team, same sort of thing, where they're working year round to try and recruit churches to host a Big Give event. The idea is God is a generous God, and we want to demonstrate that generosity by providing some sort of a free experience. Sometimes it's a free garage sale, sometimes it's like a fair, but it's amazing the impact that has. So in Ottawa, we'll get 60 to 70 churches that will participate in that. They'll use the logos, they'll use all the banners and stuff like that. And so if you drive around the city on that day, you're sure to bump into 2 or 3 places that's hosting a Big Give. And the media enjoys it. They usually come out and cover it in some fashion. So it's a great opportunity for churches to do that. That's one of the teams that actually has other churches in other cities doing the same sort of thing. And so you can go to thebiggive.ca and you can see there. If you're part of a church in a different city, you can participate and be part of that. And it's great. Our church does it. My local church does it. And the last couple of years, we see about 1,000 people coming through on that day.
Wow. 60 to 70 churches across the city all doing something on the same day. That's pretty great.
It is. It's pretty cool. And we'll get another 30 to 40 across the country doing that too.
So what I'm understanding about why that's actually possible is because you've built these networks where people know each other, like you say, and take care of each other. Tell us a little bit about some of those networks then. I know there's a group for people in leadership in the marketplace, in the business sector, am I right? And then I know you have another group for, I think, people in ministry leadership, and then spouses of people in ministry leadership. Am I going through the list right?
Yeah, you're right.
Okay.
Yeah, we have 4 tracks of different types of leaders that we track with. So pastors and ministry leaders, both men and women. And so we bring them together for, they understand each other's worlds. And so we bring them together for different types of things. One of the things we love to do is we do an appreciation event for our pastors mostly, but ministry leaders as well. And so we just throw a big party and we spend the whole evening saying, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for what you're doing. It's hard. We know what you're doing is hard. Thank you. And, usually they go away with a gift and we've got partners who love doing that and help us to do that. We have a track for prayer leaders as well. And so we engage them and encourage them to participate in Pray Ottawa, and that's one of our tracks. And then Woman Married to the Minister is a ministry for women who have the unfortunate experience of being the wife of a pastor in a church. I mean, you think about a crazy world. You just think about what they have to put up with.
Right, yeah.
How they've got to show up in a community where often they know people are not very happy with their husband, and they've got to pretend that they're friends. And there's just all kinds of, there's expectations that they never agreed to. Anyway, so we bring them together, and they understand each other's worlds really well. And it's beautiful. It's beautiful to see that they've got a place where they can feel like they belong, and where they don't have to be too careful about what they say. Karen Stiller, who who this community knows, has been a part of that in our city over the years, and she wrote about it actually in one of her books. So check that out.
Yeah, that's lovely. You kind of wish that I would pray for that for people in ministry in all the cities in Canada, right? Like I my sense is from interviewing people that oftentimes people feel lonely in their calling, whether they are a Christian, in some form of ministry or whatever, right? And so to have that peer network, I think, is really, really valuable.
It really is. So let me just finish that off. So the other track we have then is for workplace leaders.
I was going to ask about that. Okay, tell us more about that.
Yeah, we focus mostly on business owners and entrepreneurs. But what's beautiful is, I mean, you know these people. They are, they're ready to go on a moment's notice. They get things done. And so when you think about some of these evangelistic missional teams that organize on Love Ottawa, when we've got a nice mix of ministry leaders and business leaders, often there's some, and they get each other, and they know how to work with one another. Mm-hmm. Some really powerful ministry can happen through that, and we've got some examples of that. Some of the teams we support host these weekend retreats. They're very evangelistic. One of them is called Band of Brothers, another is called Solely Business. There's a women's version of that called Hearts of Beauty. And I'm always amazed at how many people come to faith through those weekends. Raw, honest conversations that they have. And Camp Iowa was a great host for us on that. And so we work to try and engage business owners and entrepreneurs, not only just to help them understand how do they take their faith to work, but how do they lean into unity? What does biblical unity mean for them in their context? And how does God want them to lean into that in our city context? And it's a lot of fun to watch them defer to one another and to love one another and care for one another, and there's all kinds of great things that come out of that. The amount of financial support that goes to different ministries in our city. Sure. Just a direct result of these relationships. And so, we get to sit back and watch that and go, thank you, Lord.
Are there obstacles to people have to participating that you have to help overcome, or myths that you have to dispel? Like, do you find that people are certain Christians are kind of suspicious of this kind of thing, or is everybody like, yeah, I'm going to jump into that right away? Like, it must be some people that have some work to do. How does that? We've
got work to do. Some people this doesn't register for them, and sometimes you've got young churches where it's all hands on deck, and a pastor's trying to launch a church.
Sure.
So it's hard to get their. It's hard to get their attention.
They don't have bandwidth to come up for some other thing, right?
But then we find sometimes the larger churches, they also have lots of things going, and they've got so many things going. They're pretty often they've got robust offerings of ministry, and so I think maybe they feel like they don't need to be part of something much bigger in their city.
Okay, yeah.
So sometimes it's hard to get their engagement. And then others, we call it hand-to-hand combat. You kind of win one at a time. But we think about what do we have to do to engage people and sort of move them along in a process where they're open to the idea, where they start thinking, they can participate in some things and to the point where they're the ones that are calling others to engage in biblical unity as well. Sort of be champions along with what we're doing in the city. So, it's we actually try and track how many that we've engaged.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So it's a little bit of an internal way of are we actually making any progress or not? So.
I know at the more macro level, like Faith Today is published by the Evangelical Fellowship of Canada, which is another sort of association that tries to do collaboration.
Yeah.
And there's always people that are a little bit suspicious. I think the obstacle that I hear most is people are a little nervous about theology. Like my theology is different than your theology. And, so yeah, there's hungry people in our city that we want to help, but somehow we're nervous about that, right?
Yeah.
So maybe that's just human.
There is a little bit of that. Do you have to have all the same beliefs? And I think for the most the evangelical church in Ottawa would have distinctives, but they're pretty open to working with one another.
I think once you build the relationships, then you see that those differences can be respected and we can still work together, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I remember early on what we were doing when people sit back and say, he's from a totally different tradition, but as I've got to know him, I can see the life of Christ in his life. I cannot deny that the life of Christ, even though we might have some theology that's a little bit different. I mean, the big things are, around human sexuality.
Sure.
So what we try to do is we try to be clear about where we stand on that. And depending on the types of things we do, we would be more open to a broader community of believers or a little bit more restrictive.
A bit depends on the activity then.
It does.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So if we're one of our teams is a team called Dig and Delve, which is an apologetic conference, they're going to be pretty tight on, who they can work with.
Yeah.
But in every May, I think it is, we have a March for Life in our city, and so we can be pretty broad in advertising that and trying to get people involved in a March for Life.
That's great.
Yeah.
So the other thing I was thinking to ask you about, I heard that you did a big conference called Capitalize. I think it was last year.
Yes.
And so I wanted you to explain that to our audience in case they hadn't heard about that, and if there's things that you've learned from doing that.
Sure. We've actually done it twice, and we made up a word to call. We call it Capitalize. It's capital YZE at the end. So it messes everybody up actually, but we've got used to it.
Okay.
But the idea is to promote biblical unity more broadly in our city. But we also offer it to other cities. So we've had, I think our last conference, we had 15 or 20 other cities come and join in with us and experience a little bit of what's happening in Ottawa, and come and share what they're doing in their cities, and we share what's going on in our cities. So there are some really interesting networks, North America wide actually, in terms of city reaching teams. That's what we call ourselves, city reachers.
Okay. Yeah.
City Leaders Collective is a great group of people who we work with. Daria Nodoza, who lives in Montreal, she's the Canadian rep for that, and we work really closely with her. And so you can sign up with them. You can go to their website and sign up and be part of a monthly call where we're hearing from different cities and what's going on in different cities. I love these because you get some great ideas of what's happening in different parts of Canada, but also in the US. There's a little bit more maturity in terms of this type of ministry south of the border.
Oh, okay.
Than there is here in Canada.
So with city reaching, that's kind of your mission as One Way as well, then, right? There's an evangelistic side to it, and then there's also a unifying side to it of Christians of different backgrounds learning to work together and collaborate. Am I reading that right?
Yeah, our vision is Christian leaders together for a flourishing city. Christian leaders serving together for a flourishing city, and flourishing in the sense of a biblical flourishing, a biblical, this overflow of God's goodness to us.
Sure. Shalom, right?
Shalom,
yeah. The other thing I want to bring to your attention is that the Faith Today podcast is published by the Evangelical Fellowship of Canada. Are you receiving the EFC's Canada Watch newsletter? It brings you the latest updates on Canadian public policy changes, EFC ministry activities, partnerships, and research projects. Join thousands of other Canadian Christians getting Canada Watch by mail or email. Visit evangelicalfellowship.ca to sign up today. That's evangelicalfellowship.ca. Now let's get back to the conversation.
So if there's listeners and our viewers at home listening to us talk, and they're interested or curious or whatever, what are some action steps that they might take if they want to learn more or connect? You mentioned this one association. Can you say the name of that again?
Yeah, they're City Leaders Collective.
Okay, great.
So look them up. one of our staff, Richard Long, has just written a book.
Oh, right. Yes.
And
Please tell us about that.
So I should make sure I mention that.
Yep.
You know what? I don't know the name of his book.
That's okay. We'll put it in the show notes, so that's fine. Tell us a little bit what it's about.
So it's Richard's story of engaging in city reaching. He started in Hamilton and moved to Ottawa to be part of what we were doing here, but also has a ministry across the country as well. So he's got lots of connections with other leaders across the country.
So again, stories that people can learn from. And we talked about that 30-year history that One Way has.
Exactly.
So Richard Long, as an individual, also has a ministry history where he's been doing that kind of work, right?
But he tells the story of One Way in the book as well.
Okay.
So there's some great background to that. Other resources?
So people who like to read, we've got a book for you.
Yeah.
People who like to network, we've got an association for you to connect with.
Yeah.
I suppose people could reach out to One Way and talk to you yourself, right?
Yeah.
And ask questions about how to do something. You mentioned the Big Give is happening in more places than just Ottawa.
Yeah.
So I suppose that people could sign up and try and organize that in their area.
Yeah. It's not, I mean, it takes some effort to do for sure, but it's not hard to do. And there's some great resources, in terms of ideas of how to pull that off on their website, thebiggive.ca. So, yeah.
Super. Well, thanks for taking the time to come in, Mark. Are there some last things that you would want to share with our audience? Some advice that you'd want to give, or some just kind of blessing that you'd want to offer to them?
Well, I would say that unity seemed to be a big deal for Jesus. It really did. And when you look at where that story is situated in the scriptures, it's kind of like, it was just before Jesus went to the cross. And you think about what somebody might be sharing when they know that their days are limited, right? And you think maybe of a father or a mother or somebody who wants to impart something important to a son or daughter before they're about to pass away. This was what Jesus wanted to make sure they grasped before he left. And he wants us to act like we're family, and that we actually do love and care for one another. And it's a challenge. It's not easy. We know it's not easy. But God says that when we do that, he pours out a blessing. And I would have to say we're seeing that in our city. I'd love to do more research, but most of the churches that we engage with, their biggest problem right now is managing growth.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's pretty consistent across the city.
Well, so for those of you who aren't from Ottawa, if you're in town, there's some fun things to see, I guess, happening, whether it's on the Big Give or some other time where you could touch base with One Way Ministries and get a bit of an explanation of the kind of networks that are being built.
Yeah.
I just want to say thank you for the work that you've been doing. You've been at this for a number of years, I assume. Do you want to say how many?
Yeah. Well, I was actually there when it started. So I've been there for almost 30 years. I've been leading the ministry for the last 20 or so.
So thank you for your investment in this important ministry. And it's great to hear you share the enthusiasm of the vision for it. I think it's going to be inspiring for people that are listening.
Absolutely. And Bill, thank you for your ministry and Faith Today and all the ways that Faith Today is expressed around Canada, the different platforms you guys use. Love the journal, love the magazine, and I heartily endorse it.
Well, thank you. It's Canada's Christian Conversation, we call it. The idea is to share stories like One Way Ministries and get more people to hear about them, because if you're in Ottawa, you've probably heard of One Way, but if you're in Edmonton, let's say, Vancouver, maybe not, right? So it's a chance for people to catch up with that. So Mark, I was also going to ask you about prayer. I know that prayer is one of the tracks or one of the emphases that One Way has. Could you lay that out a little bit for our audience, explain the kind of things that are involved in, I guess, the prayer track that you have, and then obviously prayer is a foundation for lots of what you do.
Yeah, we really do. We really believe that prayer makes a difference. I mentioned before that we have an annual event called the Ottawa Civic Prayer Breakfast, and we actually pray. Like, we pray for our leaders. We pray for our first responders.
The prayer breakfast is a communal prayer time, and all the people that are being prayed for are in the room as well?
Yeah, they're in the room.
Awesome.
Yeah. They're in the room. And we've developed this really nice relationship with the mayor in our city, Mark Sutcliffe, and he recently attended a prayer event that we hosted. It was a kickoff to a sort of a prayer strategy called One Church, One Day.
Okay.
I'll talk about that in a second. But the kickoff was on a Friday night from 7 till 9 p.m. And he came to this prayer event. Like, you think about prayer meetings are some of the hardest meetings to get people to attend.
Right.
The mayor came.
That's awesome.
And spent an hour with us on a Friday night. And he got up and he said, I know people pray for me. And he got emotional. And he said, I just want you to know how much I appreciate that.
Wow.
And that was pretty cool. So this initiative that was getting kicked off is something called One Church, One Day. And the idea is for churches to adopt 1 day a month to be praying for our city. And the idea is we're hoping to get, more than 30 churches that take 1 day a month. So every day of the month is covered by a church, right?
Yep.
And every month is covered. What's really cool though is we pray into 9 different sectors in our city, and we've recruited Christians who are involved in those 9 different sectors.
Oh, I see.
And so every month they get together and they put together insightful prayer requests for that track, for that part of the city. And those all get put together into a 2-page, back and front sheet that then goes out to all those churches
Right.
to be praying for that next month.
So when you're talking about those 9 tracks, are you talking about geographic areas in Ottawa, or are you talking about different sectors of the
sectors.
society? Okay.
Yeah, like government,
Education.
medical, education.
Okay, right.
Yeah,
Yep.
family, church, those types of things. And they're tracking prayer requests, and we're seeing prayers answered. At this event, we had the mayor and we had one of our city councilors. And one of the things we talked about praying for was for unity, for our city council. And the councilor who was there, David, said, "You know what? I think that prayer's been answered because we've had, in his experience, they've had more unity than they've ever had on city council, and that most of everything gets passed pretty much unanimously, and very little that is contentious." And so,
wow, that's
just
amazing.
An example of seeing these types of things.
So I talked
happening.
about care ministries. We talked about sort of outreach evangelistic ministries, but the prayer ministry is probably a third. If you want to think about 3 legs of the stool or whatever, right? Is kind of what I hear you saying.
Yeah. So we do a pastor's prayer summit. That's part of it as well. We try and get pastors away together for a couple of days to pray together. We've been doing that ever since Billy Graham came to town in 1998. And so we try and carry on a tradition that they introduced. And then just generally as a ministry, I'm always amazed. We pick 2 or 3 leaders, sometimes families, every week to be praying for, and we send them a card. And I'm amazed at the end of the year how many people come out and say, "You prayed for me, and that was really important. That was really special." And so we really try and do. We really try and lean into prayer. I mentioned to you recently this book called Lead with Prayer.
Yes.
Excellent resource. If you haven't read this book yet, you need to read it. If you're a Christian leader, you need to read Lead with Prayer. It's probably the book I've given away more than any other book, and I give away lots of books. And so, check that out.
So we'll put that one in the show notes as well with a little link so people can find that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming, Mark. I really appreciate your heart for this ministry and the vision that you've laid out for us here. I hope that it's contagious for some of our audience. For those who are looking for more interactions and conversations like this, you can check us out at faithtoday.tv for a video, or faithtoday.ca/podcast if you just want to hook up your phone and listen to this while you're washing dishes or whatever. Thanks very much.